Why him? Out of the hundreds of villagers, it was him who died. Some might say he brought it upon himself. I will tell you what I saw. He arrived in our village a few months ago, around the end of October. He was a tractor driver. During the winter, he cleared the roads from 6 in the morning until 6 in the evening. He kept his old trusty Belarus in perfect condition, inspecting and repairing it regularly. He kept everything in order. His military background was evident. Iron discipline was reflected in every gesture, word, and decision. He was a loner. Rarely spoke to anyone unless necessary. The only exception was me. When he arrived and bought a small, dilapidated house which he restored within a couple of weeks, I went to introduce myself. During our meetings, he shared his past. Yes, he had been through a lot, and now at 45, he just wanted peace. I enjoyed listening to him. Often he shared dinner with me. I grew very attached to him during this time. 4 months passed like this. That Saturday, the thugs came as usual in the spring to have their fun. It was a tradition. They came every year, and they came to us. We were an ordinary fading village, half women and children, and 2/3 of the remaining half were elderly. It was real terror. Giving them a proper fight or appealing to the authorities was physically impossible. The local police officer assigned to our area had long since been fired, and no one bothered to appoint a new one. They would come and torment everyone they came across, inventing their own cruel games. And of course there was violence. No matter how many girls there were in the city, no matter how beautiful they seemed to those who loved Baltica 7. And Baba Nira's sunflower seeds. In our village there was natural beauty, but almost every woman's beauty had been marred by them. No, they didn't rape them in the usual sense, but nearly every woman in the village bore scars left by them. This time there were 10 of them, and they came earlier than expected, impatient after the winter, it seemed. The grandmothers spotted them from afar and hurried back to their homes. Panic ensued in the village. Everyone ran to hide their daughters and sons, hoping they wouldn't be found. They started, as usual, by tormenting the animals. It seemed to be their warm-up. Everything was going as usual. No one could resist them. At that moment, I was sitting with him. Hearing the noise outside, he seemed to guess who it was, having heard stories about them. Grabbing a knife, he tucked it under his coat and went out. He walked so fast that I could barely keep up. By then, they were already on the road leading from the animal pens, from where the mournful mooing of the surviving cows could be heard, to the village buildings. He appeared before them suddenly, and they were taken aback. After terrorizing the village for so many years, someone was now standing in their way. It was an insult and a challenge to them. The first one ran toward him. I don't know if it can be considered self-defense, but he did what he did, slightly leaning forward. He thrust the knife straight into the attacker's neck. I watched from a distance and saw the attacker fall, choking on his blood. The others rushed at him, and I realized he stood no chance. I ran, hid in the nearest barn, and waited. They didn't go any further. One life taken seemed to be enough for them. When I came to the scene, he was lying on the ground, surrounded by 4 bodies. 1 against 10, he gave his life for their 4. Judging by the bloody trails leading back the way they came, at least 2 or 3 more were seriously injured. They left. Everyone understood they would return, but not until next year. They had satiated their violence much quicker this time and suffered losses. Yes, it was foolish of him, but he did what he did. Few could survive a fight with 10 brown bears. He was buried quickly, since graves had already been prepared for the expected victims of their visit. But this time, out of the 10 graves, only 1 was needed. And as for me, what could I do in such a situation? Sad and lonely, I returned to his home, rubbed against the table leg, lapped milk from a bowl, and jumping onto his bed, curled up and fell asleep.